Welcome, everybody. This is Alan with Daily Armour of God. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're all doing well. This is reading the Old Testament chronologically in 111 days. We're on day 6. Today we'll be continuing through Genesis, reading chapters 16 through 23. So we're still on the story of Abram, or Abraham. Basically, his name changes to Abraham, but right now he's still Abram. So Genesis 17, verse 1. And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, the Lord appeared unto Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty God. Walk before me and be thou perfect, and I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee. And I will make thee exceeding fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee in their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. And I will give unto thee, and to thy seed after thee, the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And God said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant, which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised. And ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations. He that is born in the house, or bought with money, of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house, and he that is bought with thy money, must needs be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised man child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant. And God said unto Abraham, As for Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall her name be. And I will bless her, and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. Then Abraham fell upon his face, and laughed, and said in his heart, Shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? And Abraham said unto God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard thee. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year. And he left off talking with him, and God went up from Abraham, and Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and all that were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the selfsame day, as God had said unto him. And Abraham was 90 years old and 9 when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael his son was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. In the selfsame day was Abraham circumcised, and Ishmael his son. And all the men of his house, born in the house and bought with money of the stranger, were circumcised with him. Genesis 18. And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and bowed himself toward the ground, and said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread and comfort your hearts. After that ye shall pass on, for therefore are ye come to your servant. And they said, So do, as thou hast said. And Abraham hastened into the tent unto Sarah, and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abraham ran unto the herd, and fetched a calf tender and good, and gave it unto the young man, and he hasted to dress it. And he took butter and milk, and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. And they said unto him, Where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, Behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life, and lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in years, and it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. So, uh, yeah, so this is something that's, you know, never been heard of, essentially. Um, a woman being as old as Sarah giving birth, but this is a miracle, right? This is from God. This is, um, God is allowing this to happen. Um, but we read about how Sarah was barren, like her whole life as well. So not only was she old, but she was also barren as well. Um, so that's something even more amazing when you think about that. Not only old, but was barren her whole life. So it's an act of God. Now I have read about several instances throughout history where older women can give birth, and it's not uncommon, or it's not super rare, I should say, but it can happen. You can't ever question, uh, you know, something that God intends. It will happen if God intends it. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's literally an act of God that she was able to have a son in her old age and while being barren. So it's just awesome. Therefore, Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being also old? And the Lord said unto Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of a surety bear a child which am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? I love this part. We see so many examples throughout the Bible that talk about there's nothing impossible with the Lord God. Nothing, absolutely nothing is impossible to the Lord. Um, and here, is anything too hard for the Lord? Like he's making a point here. Like no, there's nothing too hard. Everything is possible to the Lord. So that's just a great reminder that we have to remind ourselves too. Everything is possible with the Lord. Anything and everything is possible. So if you're going through something in your life and you think that there's just no way, it's impossible, that's from your point of view, right? That's from your point of view, not from God's point of view. God's point of view is He can do all things in His time and in His way. Uh, you know, Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding. I love that Proverbs 3:5. Actually, I love Proverbs 3:5 through 7. Those are my favorite 3 verses. Um, so it's saying, lean not on your own understanding. And it says, trust in the Lord with all thy heart. I mean, it's such an amazing verse. There's so much to that verse, Proverbs 3:5. It's amazing. So we need to trust in the Lord. Um, even when we think this situation is impossible, trust in the Lord, right? Keep having faith, keep praying about it, keep being in the Word, and just trust in the Lord, and don't just go off of your understanding of things, even if it seems impossible. That may be impossible to you, but it's not impossible to God. So keep having faith is my point here. Keep having faith, keep trusting in Him. So, is anything too hard for the Lord? No. At the time appointed I will return unto thee according to the time of life. Sarah shall have a son. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not, for she was afraid. And he said, Nay, but thou didst laugh. And the men rose up from thence and looked toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. And the Lord said, Shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do? Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord, and do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him. And the Lord said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me, and if not, I will know. And when the men turned their faces from thence, and went toward Sodom, but Abraham stood yet before the Lord. And Abraham drew near and said, wilt thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Peradventure there be 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou also destroy and not spare the place for 50 righteous that are therein? That it be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous should be as the wicked, that be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? This is quite amazing if you think about this. Let's stop and think about this for a second. This is Abraham talking to God, uh, and in like human form, in like I don't know. It says that he appeared in as a man. It doesn't really give us much more detail than that, but this is literally God he's talking to, right? And you see this kind of boldness with Moses later. We're going to get to that. We see boldness when Moses is talking to the Lord, like literally right in front of him, talking with him, and he's this bold. Moses was bold, and here we see Abraham being bold. And what can we learn from this? Um, we're learning that it's okay to be bold, and it's okay to ask a question to the Lord God. And when we go into prayer, it's okay to bring up the word. In fact, we should. Whatever we're going through, if there's a verse that kind of relates to it, say, for example, Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding, right? So you could be like, Lord, it says in Proverbs 3:5 that to trust in you with all my heart, lean not unto mine own understanding. So I'm not leaning on my understanding, Lord. I'm going to give you my worries and anxieties and trust in your plan, because I can't see it, but I know you can see it, and I know you can do it. So basically my point is quoting scripture to God, right? And that's okay. And asking these types of questions to God is okay too. But you have to remember to not step outside the boundary of, you know, not giving God the proper reverence and respect, aka fear, giving the Lord the proper fear that he deserves. So we need to be careful. So it's okay to say these questions, like Abraham is questioning God here, but we need to approach that in prayer and with the right mindset and with the right tone and in the right way, while giving the Lord God reverence and respect and fear. So this is just interesting to see how bold Abraham is here. And the Lord said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sakes. And Abraham answered and said, behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, which am but dust and ashes. Peradventure there shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. Wilt thou destroy all the city for lack of 5? And he said, if I find there 40 and 5, I will not destroy it. And he spake unto him yet again and said, peradventure there shall be 40 there, 40 found there. And he said, I will not do it for 40's sake. Basically, we see this word peradventure a lot. Look it up in the Webster's 1828 dictionary, but basically it means like what if, It's kind of like a what, it's basically what if. What if there are 40 and 5 there, So peradventure, it's a great word. But that's basically what it means if you didn't know. It means what if. And he said to him, oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Peradventure there shall be 30 be found there. And he said, I will not do it, if I find 30 there. And he said, behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord. Peradventure there shall be 20 found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 20's sake. And he said, oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet but this once. Peradventure 10 shall be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 10's sake. And the Lord went his way, as soon as he had left communion with Abraham, and Abraham returned unto his place. Wow, so great boldness. Not just he asked him once, you know, starting out at 50, but he kept lowering it. So he had great boldness to essentially question God. And again, it's not necessarily a bad thing to question God. Like, for example, Lord, I'm waiting. Um, you know, it says in the Bible to trust in you and to be patient, keep waiting. It says in the Word that, and I am doing this. So, whatever the case may be, in your case, just talk with Him, pour your heart out. He already knows what's in your heart anyway, so pour out your heart to the Lord. Why not? But do it in a way that you're glorifying Him and giving Him the proper reverence and respect. So Genesis 19. And there came two angels to Sodom at even, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom, and Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them. And he bowed himself with his face toward the ground, and he said, Behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early, and go on your way. And they said, Nay, but we will abide in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned in unto him, and entered into his house, and he made them a feast, and did break unleavened bread, and they did eat. But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot, and said unto him, Oh, it's just evil. And they said unto him, Where are the men which came to thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. And Lot went out at the door unto them, and shut the door after him, and said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Yeah, it's wicked. These people are doing wicked abominations. Um, and, the Bible even says, like, there was blood crying out to God, bloodshed. They were doing not just, like, sick, perverse things, which they were doing that, but they were also doing, like, murders and this and that. Like, blood was crying out to God. Crying, just like how when Cain slew Abel, and Abel's blood was crying out. So blood is something extraordinary, and I believe that all blood calls out to God, because the Bible talks about how there's the life in the blood. The blood is life. And I could do another Bible study about the blood, about just blood in general. I did a Bible study about the blood of Jesus Christ and the importance of the blood, but just in general, doing a Bible study about blood and the importance is very interesting too. But he said, "Do not so wickedly. Don't be wicked. Don't do this thing. Behold, now I have two daughters which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them as in good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore they came under the shadow of my roof. And they said, Stand back. And they said again, This one fellow came into sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. Now will we deal worse with thee than with him. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and they came near to break the door. But the men put forth their hand, and pulled Lot into the house to them, and shut the door. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. And the men said unto Lot, Hast thou here any besides son-in-law, and thy sons, and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city? Bring them out of this place, for we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord hath sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, Up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed as one that had that mocked unto his sons-in-law. So they thought he was mocking. Like, look at this crazy guy. The Lord's going to destroy this place. No way. But so they didn't escape. And when the morning arose, then the angels hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife and thy two daughters, which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his two daughters, and the Lord being merciful unto him. Yep, mercy. And they brought him forth and set him without the city. You know what? Every time I see mercy, it reminds me of that passage that says, uh, and his mercy endures forever. Isn't that amazing? God's mercy endures forever. I mean, without mercy, none of us would be saved. It's by mercy, it's by grace that he had on us that we have a chance at salvation. Man, I just love the Bible. I love the Lord, and I love seeing um, all the characters of God and seeing how He is super merciful. And people say, like, oh, why would God allow this and that to happen and the other? People love bringing that argument up about everything, every little detail. They'll say, how can God allow this to happen, that to happen? But people don't realize, because people don't read the Bible, people don't realize how much mercy and slow to anger God is, right? For example, the people in the land of Canaan. We're going to get to it here soon, and either today or tomorrow. The people of Canaan, the land of Canaan where Abraham is, all the different groups, all the different ites, like the Canaanites and the Jebusites and the all the ites, all the different groups of people, they were doing so wickedly too, just like Sodom and Gomorrah. But guess what? God didn't destroy them right away. No, He waited over 400 years, right? They had their chance to come to repentance. God allowed them to survive for over 400 years, until the children of Israel came out of Egypt, after being slaves, and basically wiped the land clean of most, not all, most of the evil inhabitants. So, and that was just, over 400 years. So they had over 400 years to repent. They didn't. So that's just one example out of many of examples of God's mercy, right? Just think if he didn't have mercy on us, most of us wouldn't either be alive, or most of us wouldn't be going to heaven, right? If God didn't have mercy. So my point in all this is mercy. I love reading about mercy, and it just popped up in my mind how I want to do a Bible study strictly on mercy. It's going to be a long one because there's lots of mercy in the Bible. But continuing on, thank you for bearing with me. Uh, okay, so it says, and it came to pass, and they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, escape for thy life, look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountains, lest thou be consumed. And Lot said unto them, Oh, not so, my lord. Behold, now thy servant hath found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast showed unto me in saving my life. And I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me and I die. Behold, now this city is near to flee into, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. It is not a little one, and my soul shall live. And he said unto him, See, I have accepted thee concerning this thing, that I will not overthrow this city for the which thou hast spoken. Haste thee, escape thither, for I cannot do anything until thou be come thither. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered into Zoar. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. Wow. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and all which grew upon the ground. It's important to note that, yeah, it wasn't just two cities. It was Sodom and Gomorrah. Those two huge cities, but there was a lot of surrounding cities too, smaller, I guess, towns that got destroyed too. Um, and it says not just the city, but everything that grew up upon the ground got destroyed. And even to this day, if you look into Sodom and Gomorrah location, there's absolutely nothing growing there to this day. And you still find like sulfur and brimstone and stuff like that. There's like, it's decimated. It's very interesting. So if you have time, check that out. It's so amazing. Like, it was, and here's the thing, it was a fertile area at one point before God destroyed it, and just, God's wrath completely wiped it off the face of the earth, and it's still to this day, there's nothing there, nothing growing, no life anywhere. So that proves, one of many proofs that prove that the Bible is real. So I just love reading these stories, man. I'm excited. I love reading the Bible. Okay, so he said not to look back, and then Genesis 19:26. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord, and he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. Think about that for a second. People just think in their mind smoke. Think about a furnace, like an old furnace, and this how thick the smoke would be. Like that just shows the magnitude of God's power. Like that's just crazy. That'd be amazing to see. And it came to pass when God destroyed the cities of the plain that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow when he overthrew the cities in which Lot dwelt. And Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountain, and his 2 daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar, and he dwelt in the cave, and his 2 daughters. All right, and here's the part that people love to take out of context and like twist and pervert. Um, but you have to look at the whole picture. So I'm just going to read it and then I'll talk about it. And the firstborn said unto the younger, Our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with him, lay with her father, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Okay, there's multiple points I want to make here, real quick. The first point is this about being drunk. If we drink to get drunk, we will end up doing something we regret. We will. It's just bound to happen. So we should strive to not drink so we don't end up drunk and in a situation we don't want to be in. Remember Noah. Remember? He grew wine, he grew a vineyard and started drinking wine and got drunken. And an abomination happened to him because he was drunk. What do we see here? Lot is drunk and something happened to him. Now, uh, I'm not saying what's going on here is right, because it's not. But you have to remember that back in these days, it wasn't uncommon for family members to marry other family members. So I'm just pointing that out there, but it doesn't excuse what his daughters did. What his daughters did was sin, but Lot's not innocent either. Lot got drunk. If he didn't get drunk, that would have happened, but he did. So there's many lessons to be learned here in these verses, despite how uncomfortable they may be. There's a learning lesson here. So yeah, he didn't know anything about the whole situation because he was drunk. And it came to pass on the morrow that the firstborn said to the younger, Behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also. And the younger arose and lay with her father, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. So here's another point. He wasn't just drunk, but he was that drunk that he didn't even know when she laid with him or when she left. He was that, it's like, I guess you'd call it in today's term, blackout drunk. Not just drunk, blackout drunk, so you don't even remember anything. That's scary. I don't ever want to be blackout drunk. I don't want anyone else to be blackout drunk, because anything and everything could happen to you when you're that way. All right, so just be careful. Um, just be careful. All right. Um, so he didn't know. He was blackout drunk. He didn't know anything about the whole situation. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father, and the firstborn bare a son, called his name Moab, and the same as the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger, she also bare a son, and called his name Benami, the same as the father of the children of Ammon unto this day. All right, so people like to twist those verses so much, but you know what the important thing is here? The lessons to be learned. Despite the uncomfortable topics, there's lessons. There's so many lessons in the Bible. There's so many things we can learn and glean from. So I love the Bible. So continuing on, Genesis 20. And Abraham journeyed from thence toward the south country, and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur, and sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said of Sarah his wife, She is my sister. So again, here we see Abraham lying because he didn't want to be killed because they would see Sarah and want her. Um, but you know what's interesting here is she's like way up there in age. I think she's what she was 10 years younger than Abraham, so she's like 80. Um, so and people did live a little bit longer here, not as long as the days before Noah, but so she could have been good looking. Here's another theory that I've heard and I've read that God made her more attractive. Like God made her body more attractive because he was getting her ready for Isaac, to bear Isaac. So that could be. We don't know exactly, but the point is, Abraham lied again because he was afraid that they would take his wife and kill him. But the reason why is because if he was her brother, they would entreat him. They would, because the brother would be the one getting the gifts for giving away his sister, because he's basically like the father. He would take the father's position as the head, the male, the head of the house. So what they would do is they would give gifts to if to the father, and if the father wasn't there, give gifts to the brother to be able to marry their sister. So that's why he said it, because he was like, I'd be safe because they're not going to kill me, they'll entreat me. But if he stayed as his as her husband, they'd be like, oh look, she's married, let's just kill him and take her. So I mean, people like to say like, oh, Abraham was perfect, and I say no. Abraham was righteous and he did a lot of good things, but he also, it was a human being and also a sinner. Romans 3:23. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So he's sinning here essentially. But we all sin. So that's not the point. The point is he's lying here about this. So, and Abraham said of Sarah, his wife, she is my sister. So he literally told this king that she's his sister. And so what happens? Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. Oh man, but God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, behold, thou art but a dead man for the woman which thou hast taken, for she is a man's wife. Yeah, you know what else that when I read these, it kind of makes me furious a little bit, that you would think so low of your wife. Like, I rather save my life and give my wife away to another man than to stand up and say, yes, this is my wife, and I'm not gonna let her ever be someone else's, ever. I would never do that. She is mine, I am hers, and stand up for what's right. That's what you should do. That's what a man should do. uh Stand up for his wife. So, but in this situation, Abraham was more concerned over his life. And that just leads me back to the verses about in the New Testament, about how it it's addressed to husbands. There's some verses addressed to husbands where it says, husbands, love your wives even as your own flesh. That is what what a man should do to his wife, is love her just as much, if not more, than your own flesh. So it's anyway, I'm getting off topic a little bit here, but my point is Abraham should have stuck up for his wife here. So that was wrong. And then what happens, you know, someone else comes along and takes her. Luckily nothing happened because God intervened. But yeah, we just have to be careful. And we should do what's right. As a man, you should do what's right. Stand up and for your wife, no matter what the consequences may be. You stand up for your wife. At least that's what I would do. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night, and said to him, behold, thou art but a dead man for the woman which thou hast taken. She is a man's wife. But Abimelech had not come near, and he said, Lord, wilt thou slay also a righteous nation? Said he not unto me, she is my sister? And she even herself said, he is my brother. In integrity of my heart and innocency of my hands have I done this. Here's one more interesting thing. This king, it doesn't mention that he's, a follower of God, but he's literally talking to God here. And he's saying, You know my heart. You know the integrity of my heart. So he's saying, you know my heart. She said that she was uh, his brother or his sister, and he said she was his sister. So with a clear conscience, I took her to be my wife. That's basically what he's saying, right? So with in the integrity of my heart and innocence in my hands have I done this. And God said unto him in a dream, Yea, I know that thou didst this in the integrity of thy heart, for I also withheld thee from sinning against me, therefore suffered I thee not to touch her. So, oh man, this Abraham's so blessed here, right? God's looking out for him. This king did not touch her in any sort of way, but if God didn't intervene, then yeah, you know, that's what would have happened. So he's lucky that another man didn't touch her. Blessed, I should say. Now therefore restore the man his wife, for he is a prophet. He shall pray for thee, and thou shalt live. And if thou restore her not, know thou that thou shalt surely die, thou and all that are thine. Whew. Therefore Abimelech rose early in the morning. Yeah, he had a fire lit under his rear, didn't he? He rose early in the morning and called all his servants and told all these things in their ears, and the men were sore afraid. Yeah, I'd be too. Um, but yeah, I mean, God gave Abimelech the chance to do what's right, even though he was, in the integrity of his heart, and he didn't mean to take a married woman. Um, he still gave Abimelech a chance, so he still understood the situation, which is, that's more mercy. God's showing mercy to this random, probably pagan king, right? Um, so Abimelech called Abraham and said unto him, What hast thou done unto us? And what have I offended thee that thou hast brought on me and on my kingdom a great sin? Thou hast done deeds unto me that ought not to be done. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, What sawest thou that thou hast done this thing? And Abraham said, Because I thought, surely the fear of God is not in this place, and they will slay me for my wife's sake. And yet indeed she is my sister, she is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And it came to pass, when God caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said unto her, This is the kindness which thou shalt show unto me at every place whither we shall come. Say of me, He is my brother. And Abimelech took sheep and oxen and men servants and women servants, and gave them unto Abraham, and restored him Sarah his wife. And Abimelech said, Behold, my land is before thee. Dwell there, where it pleaseth you. So he's given Abimelech, this king, is, despite being, tricked, is given Abraham all this stuff because he has the fear of the Lord in him. Um, and he was told that he's a prophet of the Lord, of God. So he's like, okay, you're the one who lied to me, but here you go. Here's some stuff. Now go in peace, because I don't want the wrath of God on me. So, and unto Sarah he said, Behold, I have given thy brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Behold, he is to thee a covering of the eyes, unto all that are with thee, and with all other. Thus was she reproved. So Abraham prayed unto God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and his maidservants, and they all bare children. For the Lord had fast closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. All right, so if any of you guys are married out there, any of you men, treat your wife with respect and love her as you would your own body. All right. Genesis 21. And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, and at the set time of which God had spoken to him. Here we see two great things. Real quick, let's talk about it. We see that the Lord literally did what he said he would do, right? And he did it at the time, at the set time. So it's God coming through, because he never breaks a promise and he never lies, because God cannot lie. And so he came through with his promise, and it was at his timing, his timing, his promise, his way. So that's just amazing thing that we can remember. It's in God's timing. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. And Sarah said, God hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. And she said, Who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should have given children suck? For I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, which she had borne unto Abraham, mocking. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. And the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight because of his son. Yeah, you have to remember, Abraham loved him. Abraham loved Ishmael. He did. But it was a really bad situation, really bad. But you have to remember that whole situation with Ishmael and Hagar. Abraham taking Hagar to wife and then having Ishmael. That whole situation was because they couldn't wait on God's timing, right? And that's another lesson. If they would have waited, then he wouldn't be going through this situation, this grievous situation, where he has to, cast out his own son, his blood, because it is. It's just not Sarah's child. It's Abraham's and Hagar's child. So he's like in a tough spot here because he wants to please his wife, or his first wife, I guess. Because I guess technically Hagar was his wife, but she was more of like in concubine status, meaning just there for reproducing for that one son. Anyway, my point is that he's in this situation because they took matters in their own hands. It was actually Sarah's idea, but Abraham, went through with it. So they're both at fault here, and they both made a mistake, and now they have to pay the consequence of that mistake for not trusting in God and waiting on Him. So this is a lesson to be learned. We need to trust in God and wait on Him. So that's why it was grievous in Abraham's sight, because he's like, this is my son. This is my son, Ishmael. And God said unto Abraham, Let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad, and because of thy bondwoman. In all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice, for Isaac shall thy seed be called, in Isaac. And also the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation, because he is thy seed. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and took bread, and put a bottle of water, and gave unto Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, and the child, and sent her away. And she departed, and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. And the water was spent in the bottle, and she cast the child under one of the shrubs. And she went and sat her down over against him, a good way off, as it were a bowshot. For she said, Let me not see the death of the child. And she sat over against him, and lifted up her voice, and wept. And God heard the voice of the lad, and the angel of God called Hagar out of heaven, and said unto her, What aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him in thine hand, for I will make him a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went, filled the bottle with water, and gave the lad to drink. God was with the lad, and he grew, and dwelt in the wilderness, and became an archer. He dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. It came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the chief captain of the host, spake unto Abraham, saying, God is with thee in all that thou doest. Now therefore swear unto me here by God that thou wilt not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with my son's son, but according to the kindness that I have done unto thee, thou shalt do unto me, and to the land wherein thou hast sojourned. And Abraham said, I will swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of a well of water which Abimelech's servant had violently taken away. But Abimelech said, I wot not who hath done this thing, neither didst thou tell me, neither yet heard I of it, but today. Abraham took sheep and oxen, and gave them unto Abimelech, and both of the men made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, What mean these 7 ewe lambs which thou hast set by themselves? And he said, For these 7 ewe lambs shalt thou take in my hand, that they may be a witness unto me that I have digged this well. Wherefore he called the place Beersheba, because there they swear, both of them. Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech rose up and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, and they returned into the land of the Philistines. Isn't that interesting? If you know the Bible, you know the Philistines were a thorn in the children of Israel's side forever. But we see here very early on in the Philistines' history that they actually had a covenant. They did. Obviously, they broke the covenant. We know that because the Philistines fight against the children of Israel for so many years, like hundreds, if not thousands of years. Uh, Maybe not thousands, maybe hundreds, close to 1,000 probably. They were their arch nemesis essentially. So yeah, but at first they Abraham's made a covenant. Abraham made a covenant with Abimelech, and they just so happened to be called Philistines. And Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord and the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned in the Philistines' land many days. Genesis 22. And it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. Wow, can you imagine hearing this? Can you imagine? But I'm gonna read this and I'll talk about it. But this is just another amazing story. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his ass and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son and cleaved the wood for the burnt offering and rose up and went unto the place which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder to and worship, and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, laid it upon Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand, and a knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together. Man, this is just so awesome. So far, if you're reading it carefully, you can see so much so much symbolism, so much things, uh, you know, meaning in what's happening here. And they came to the place which God had told him of, and Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah Jireh, as it is said to this day, In the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. And the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham out of heavens the 2nd time, and said, By myself have I sworn, saith the Lord, for because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore. And thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies, and in thy seed shall the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned unto his young men, and they rose up, went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt at Beersheba. And it came to pass after these things, that it was told Abraham, saying, Behold, Milcah, she hath also borne children unto thy brother Nahor, who is his firstborn, Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Chesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Jidlap, and Bethuel. Bethuel begat Rebekah. These 8 Milcah did bear to Nahor, Abraham's brother. And his concubine, whose name was Remuah, she bare also Teba, Gaham, Thahash, and Makkah. And Genesis 23. And Sarah was 107 and 20 years old. These were the years of the life of Sarah. Sarah died in Kirjath Arba, the same as Hebron in the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. And Abraham stood up from before his dead, and spake unto the sons of Heth, saying, I am a stranger and a sojourner with you. Give me a possession for a burying place with you, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. The children of Heth answered Abraham, saying unto him, Here is my lord, thou art mighty prince among us. In the choice of our sepulchres bury thy dead. None of us shall withhold from thee his sepulchre, but that thou mayest bury the dead. And Abraham stood up and bowed himself to the people of the land, even to the children of Heth, and he communed with them, saying, If it be your mind that I should bear my dead out of my sight, hear me, and entreat for me to Ephron the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he hath, which is in the end of his field. For as much money as it is worth, he shall give it me for possession of a burying place amongst you. And Ephron dwelt among the children of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the audience of the children of Heth, even of all that went in at the gate of the city, saying, Nay, my lord, hear me. The field give I thee, and the cave that is therein I give it thee. In the presence of the sons of my people I give it thee. Bury thy dead. And Abraham bowed down himself before the people of the land, and he spake unto Ephron in the audience of the people of the land, saying, But if thou wilt give it, I pray thee, hear me, and I will give thee money for the field. Take it of me, and I will bury my dead there. And Ephron answered Abraham, saying unto him, My lord, hearken unto me. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver, but what is that betwixt me and thee? Bury therefore thy dead. And Abraham hearkened unto Ephron, and Abraham weighed to Ephron the silver which he had named, and the honor to the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, current money with the merchant. The field of Ephron, which was in Machpelah, which was before Mamre, the field and the cave which was therein, and all the trees that were in the field, that were in all the borders round about, were made sure. Unto Abraham for possession the presence of the children of Heth, before all that went in at the gate of his city. And after this Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, the same as Hebron in the land of Canaan. And the field and the cave that is therein were made sure unto Abraham for possession of a burying place by the sons of Heth. All right, well, man, there are so many great lessons today. Yeah, so many great ones. But thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys have a great evening, morning, noon, wherever you're at. Remember to put God first in everything you do. Have faith in Him. Have trust in Him. Wait upon Him, or continue waiting upon Him. And be in the Word daily, and you'll never be sorry, ever. And no amount of time spent in the Word or in prayer is ever a waste. And it's never in vain either. The Bible says everything you do for the Lord is not in vain. So keep that in mind. So we'll continue this tomorrow. Thank you so much. God willingly, we'll see you tomorrow. So God bless and take care.